What's up, y'all? Today I'm going to show you how you can take a really basic vanilla sounding Dariacore complextro-y like EDM hyperflip drop like this and add a couple of different little sound design layers and pieces to get it to sound like this. So kind of building up from the bass here, we have a sub, add a lead, add a saw chord. That's pretty standard. A lot of people know how to do that, so I'm not going to explain it anymore. Then we have a basic kick, snare, and hats with a crash on the beginning of the first, the first piece of the 4-bar sections. Another thing we can add in is like a quadruple or double or triple laser zap sound before each of the snares, and I have two different versions. This one's like a little almost tom thing. Just kind of gives it a different little flow. Then we're going to layer up our snare with a couple little electronic-y pieces that sound like this, just to make it sound more digital. We have this crackly one with a little bit of digitalness, almost like mechanical one. Then like a little percussion piece. Those are all Patreon samples of mine. So with that in the context of the mix here. So what's the next thing that we can add here? A couple more layers to our super saw. So here I have this little like keys sound font layer. Then I have this little serum stab that I've added that is basically just something other than a saw, since I already have a super saw. So get yourself a wavetable that's not a saw. And I just have like a little low pass that's being plucked on this. And as you'll kind of hear, it just takes the saw from this, which is like pretty sterile and not really textured, and just gives it a little bit of texture. Then the next thing, which I've been asked about a lot, which is the vocal chop. And I don't want to bloat this tutorial too much, but basically what you want to do is take a vocal that you have that's synced to the tempo of your track. I have a video that I'll put a little insert right here. Just click the video if you want to see how to get it synced with the tempo, but it'll sound like this. Make them dance just like you, 'cause you make me move. As you can hear, it's kind of like fitting with the click of my track there. Then you're going to want to just slice out however much you want to work with. Maybe you heard a particular piece that you thought would work well. Maybe you've never done this, so you might want to just start with a random piece, put it in there. And I would play it with a piece of your chord, so you kind of have an idea that it fits the melody. And then get the slip tool, so you can just kind of copy this piece over and then slip it to be a different piece. And sometimes you might even have to manually adjust it. But just mix in a couple pieces that aren't the exact same length and stuff, and you'll just kind of want to build a flow out of this. Then once you have that, I would copy it over. You don't want to get too much variation there, because if you do, you'll kind of get into this like, never-ending evolving pattern of a vocal that doesn't really hook the listener as much as it like just kind of complexifies your song to a point where the songwriting's a little harder to do. So once you have that, you can do it twice and maybe just repeat this little section 3 times. Or just pick a different slice out. I don't really like that. Yeah. So that's basically how you build one of those out. The only other tip that I'll give is use sections of the vocals like fully uninterrupted to just kind of build your track out. So I've just repeated this pattern over and over again. And as you can hear, I have a second vocal that comes in there, so get creative with this. So I'm ending the bar out with a full section of the vocal. Yeah, you always make me go. And even starting on like the next logical, you know, how the vocal actually goes piece. And then just going right back to the same shit, you know? It just kind of helps it fit with the track a little more. And then I actually bring a different vocal in here. And you don't always have to do these like frenetic, crazy schizophrenic sounding vocal chops like this, the almost Skrillexy but more happy sounding ones. You can also just, you know, here I'm like repeating pieces of a vocal that I'm like sweeping up reverb and stuff on to end a section. And in context it works. It kind of sounds like shit outside of context, but with what I have here, it sounds pretty decent, I think. So let's talk about the last piece of this, and that is the fillers. So the fillers on their own are just these little orange fills that I have. One of them is like keys. Then this little like plucky synth, and I'll just show the sound design on this so that you know it doesn't have to be crazy, right? I just have a saw wave that's getting plucked. And then I'm just sending it into like OTT, heavy compression, bit crushing, and some distortion, right? You don't have to go nuts and do insane sound design if you're like spamming the listener with like crazy melodies. So then finishing it out with this little saw chord thing. And that is a little bit more advanced, but let me just show you how I got that there. So let me turn this on, and the sound design's pretty basic. I just have two little super saws with this LFO that kind of adjusts the filter, but it plays the two different notes because I don't have it set to trigger. I have it set to off, so it can kind of go with the length of the LFO here. So I'm doing that on the first hit, this on the second hit, super saw, but not with a saw wave, a little bit of EQing. Then when I add some effects to this, we'll do it with a regular spectral gate first. This is what it sounds like with this automation on a spectral gate. So just kind of getting that weird spectral sound. But I actually used a different thing on this one. I used this patcher that I made that does spectral sound design but makes it really easy for you. It looks like this. You can get it over on Gumroad. I don't want to promo it too much, but I just want to say this is just a couple automations that I've done here to this spectralized knob, along with a couple other little parameters in here. And you'll kind of see them moving around in here once I play it. So just a nice little spectral sound design tool that I've come up with. Again, you can get that on my Gumroad. Let's talk about the last little pieces of this, which are the probably thing that people want to know about the most, and that is the bass filler aspect. I'll turn the chords off and play it by itself. This is what it sounds like. So this orange piece here is just a Patreon sample. You can get that over on Patreon. I do a sample pack every month, and then these I made from resampling. So I want to talk about these green layers first, because the rest of it is just sample use. The green and blue, and just to kind of give context of how I'm using this, it's not like I make a big space for it in the track. Basically what I'm doing is just kind of doing this repeating flow with it, but then it's playing at times when other things are playing, so I'm not like making a big gap every time for it. In this first case, it plays over the vocal, and then in the second case here, I just let it kind of take over a little bit of space where the saws are playing it. And the fact that I'm just adding limiting and just kind of stomping the signal down in the master just brings all these sounds together. Right, I'm just mixing it into the signal that I already have, and I'm not really being super precise. Like with dubstep, a lot of the times you want to make big space for your bass to be there. In this case, I'm kind of using it as a layer. So how did I make this layer? Let's talk about that for a minute. So here's one way that you can do these like Dariacore sample mashup things pretty easily. Just take a instrumental, use vocalremover.org, or just leave the vocal in. It doesn't really matter, to get that, sync it to the tempo of your track. So an easy way that you can do this is just take a vocodex, throw it on top, and I would use another instrumental. So here I'm using this instrumental. OTTing it, adding some compression and some distortion, and then sending that in as a modulator to my vocodex here. Then you can use a volume shaper to chop it into pieces and just compress it and EQ it and saturate it and compress it some more. Another thing that's useful is glitch 2 if you have that. If not, just any kind of like buffer glitch thing. They have a lot of these out there nowadays, but like Digitalis is useful for this. Hysteresis is useful for this. Hysteresis is free if you want a free one. Glitch 2 is relatively cheap. This is what it sounds like with glitch 2 on it. And just mess with your volume shaper to get different chunks out of it. And experiment with the effects some more. Lastly, another thing you can do, I also made, and I'm kind of demoing all these to show that these are useful things you can use in your track. There's another thing on Gumroad that I have. Actually, this goes along with the first thing that I showed, which is a spectralizer plugin. This one's a spectral sidechain, so you're gonna have to, once you add a sidechain to it, go into here, and I have, this is my modulator in this case. The carrier is the input that it starts with. So when you load this up, this is not going to be there, and this is not going to be there, but you're going to have to route your thing into your track. So this is my thing, route it into my track, go in here, turn this on, go into the outputs, audio, put that, route the sidechain to here. That's pretty self-explanatory. And then you can just kind of add some automations to some of the parameters in there to get pretty cool little spectral things. So here's what they sound like. And this one, in this particular case, is a spectral sidechain, so it uses the brown track to modulate the spectral compression on the carrier, which is the green track. And just to give the producers credit of the originals, the green one is Polarm by White Swan. The brown one is Heaven, is Talk by Heaven. So Heavn. And you can throw some glitch 2 on there too. If you're wondering, you can get both of those and a third spectral patcher, $5 on the Gumroad. Plug in, baby. All right, what else do we have here? This is just another way that you can do these, and I've showed how to do granular sound design, but I just took my granular methodology that I use. Oh, I also forgot I had effects that were not on. Yeah, the difference there is I turned the OTT on that I had in the modulator section of this. So if you make the modulator nice and punchy and loud, it's going to make it modulate better for what you have in the carrier. Lastly, here we have Mr. Pligs, which is it just takes the granular sound design that I've showed a bunch of times how to do, and puts it all in one nice easy patcher. You just load this up. You will need phase plant and snap heap for this, and OTT, but those are, I think they're relatively common that people have. So I've just modulated some of my things here. Right, so I'm using this little resonator that we have. I'm using the grain length, and I'm using sample position and grain or resonator flavor. You can get this on my Gumroad. It's also $5, but it comes with about 10 different versions of the 3 plugins that I have. One is Mr. Pligs. There's another version of Mr. Pligs called Miss Pligs, and then there's a pad version of it that I have 3 different versions of, and then there's a little synth that I've made for making like hyperpop, Dariacore, and pedalcore, or whatever that genre is called, those type of chord melodies. So what does this do? It just takes everything that I've showed basically with doing granular bass design sessions and puts it in one place. So let me turn these automations off, and we'll just kind of mess. Or no, we'll leave the automations on, and I'll just kind of press some buttons, and you'll see that this is pretty much a sound goodizer. There's no post effects on this. Turn the position chaos on, and it'll just play random sections. There's a gate here. There's also a shortener for the resonator, so you don't always have those long tails. And the gate will actually gate the length of it. Let's try some of these little retoner presets and then kind of finish the video out. Got a vocoder down here. Don't press these. What else can I show here? Turn the grains up, play with the different sample selectors here. And you can EQ it in case you already have a sub. Yeah, so I think that's all I'm going to show for this. Go get that. It's on Gumroad. And I'm sorry I haven't put out a Dariacore tutorial in a while. I have been messing around with Ableton. I will say that I'm not switching to Ableton. I'm just, I'm going to probably use Ableton to sound design and learn sound design in there until I'm comfortable working in it, and stay in FL to produce because it's just easier for me to do that. I hate the piano roll in Ableton. I got some mean comments about me using Ableton. They called me a homosexual, I think one guy said, which is hilarious. He said I was an Ableton homo, which, I mean, Ableton is a little autistic looking. I will say that. If I can give a critique of, is Ableton gay? Right? I didn't know this was a thing. He called me gay for using Ableton. Or he said I was on my way to being gay. It was something of that nature. I also shout out to that guy because he was saying, dude, you used to make fun of Ableton, and now the channel's in, you know, the channel's in, tatters, you know, we've fallen apart here. Now we're using Ableton. What is going on? It is a little, you know, I guess there is a lot of colors here, but does that make Ableton gay? Is Ableton gay? In the comments, let me know. Is Ableton gay or is it just autistic? It reminds me of like Connects and Lego bricks, so I think it probably is autistic. Yeah, that's gonna do it for this one, y'all. I think I've said everything that needs to be said here.